Welcome to Trending in Education. As part of our series of conversations, I'm here with Dan Antonson, who is the AVP of Data and Analytics for Collegis Education. We've been here in Chicago at Google headquarters at the DisruptED session. Dan is fresh off the keynote stage next door, just gave his session on AI ready or AI reckless, reality check your institution's data for optimal readiness. We're going to get into that in a bit. Before we do that, Dan, welcome to Trending in Education.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. We had a nice warm-up conversation. I hope we can live up to that in the actual thing now. We always like to start by hearing your story in your own words. How'd you get to this point in your professional life?
Yeah, so I've been with Collegis now for, it'll be 12 years in November.
Okay.
And I never thought, when you start a job and you're never thinking like, I'm going to be here but it's been a really fun journey. It's been fun to grow my career here.
Yeah.
So prior to coming to Collegis, I came from, think of it as like traditional digital analytics in marketing agency context.
Yep.
So I worked for some various marketing agencies throughout the Twin Cities, which is kind of known for its marketing agency culture.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of Fortune 500 companies. So I was doing work for Target, for Best Buy, for 3M, and I had some really great experiences, but it was very clear to me that being in marketing agency world meant you were staying in marketing.
Mhm.
And I, being a technologist and a self-proclaimed data geek, wanted to get my hands on data beyond, Google Analytics and e-commerce data. And so Collegis it was a new position. Nobody had the role before me, and it was a technical analytics role. And I came in, I built kind of the initial, enrollment marketing attribution foundation. And from there, built a data engineering team, which then my use cases went from enrollment into student success into learning, and just kind of organically over the last decade now, kind of built a data squad. So kind of two parts to my role today. I lead a data and analytics team. We do a lot of data engineering, helping schools collect the right data, connect it to centralize it, and then building applications on top of that.
Right.
More and more so AI applications, of course.
Right.
And so leading a team is kind of one half of my role. And the other half of my role is really getting hands-on with schools. And I lead a lot of systems and design thinking workshops where we help schools unpack their data and analytics challenges and help them kind of reframe and rethink, and to ultimately drive the impact that they're after. So it's been really rewarding. Like I had said, I never had originally envisioned that I'd be here this long, but higher education is just is really a great, playground, if you will, for data. And I just think the opportunity for AI impact is so great that it's kind of a hard space to leave. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And there were some oohs and ahs next door as you were doing your whiteboarding and your schematizing to kind of show what's going on under the hood. Maybe let's go there next, where the title AI ready or AI reckless, it's implying that people can maybe move too fast and sort of think they're ready for AI when they're maybe not understanding what's going on under the hood. Can you expand on what's going on there?
Yeah. So when I was given the presentation slot and asked to, give an AI readiness conversation or talk, I kind of struggled at first with what to talk about, because I think AI, there's obviously so many different facets of it. It's ethics, it's governance, it's security, it's management, it's change management. There's so much to it. I was thinking to myself, how do I spend the next hour helping these leaders like kind of rethink and get AI ready? So what I did in my presentation is I outlined my toolkit, the way I approach systems thinking with schools to help them really understand, what are they trying to accomplish? What is our objective? What systems do we have in place? And then how do we evolve those systems? And the systems being the collective data ecosystem. So everything from the enrollment systems to student information systems, the ERP systems, the LMSs, the alumni systems, the athletic systems. Like how do you inventory those things and then reimagine the future in a way that is, collaborative and cross-functional. And so I call it my party trick is our whiteboards. And so up on stage, I didn't have any slides. I just had my magic screen and I literally drew out my model.
Yeah. You're
And
kind of the Picasso of data infrastructure.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. It's been, I think somebody called me Doodle Dan in the room. I don't know if I like that one, but
Yeah.
I like the Bob Ross of Collegis. I'll take that one.
Yeah. Happy little database.
Happy. Yes, exactly. I'm always really grateful when I have the opportunity to share something I'm really passionate about. And I love the whiteboarding. Not just, I don't consider myself an artist by any stretch. The only thing I draw are systems architecture. So I'm like the nerd Bob Ross, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, sitting down and really getting teams in higher education to look at the same problem.
Yeah.
Like, I think what happens is there's kind of almost a language gap where schools and individuals, they'll say things like, oh, well, it's in the CRM system, or, oh, we don't have that. We have a problem in this system, but nobody is really taking the time to like sketch out, like, this is what I mean. This is what I'm talking about.
Right.
And then when I draw or when somebody says, well, this is how it works. And then somebody else in the room says, no, it doesn't. It actually works like this. That's the needed conversation that needs to happen, because if we don't understand the problem in the same way,
Right.
how on earth are we going to actually like fix that?
Right. Exactly.
And so to me, AI readiness is certainly, like I said, there's the ethics, there's the security, and those things are all important. But I think so much of AI ready is helping teams have almost a framework for talking about readiness and evolving. And I think starting there with a foundation of like, this is what we have, really creates that springboard for designing what the future should look like. And that's, looking at technology, there are decisions to be made. Some of those are small, some of those are big, some of them are expensive. There's no silver bullet there, but like, you have to start the conversation with a blueprint. And I think schools really need help doing that. So it was well received. So,
yeah. Well, it's kind of like getting your lab values, or like doing like an X-ray, or like whatever analogy you want. Like, you need to actually see what things look like under the hood. And in the case of higher ed and a lot of small organizations, small to medium size, growth is kind of a McMansion process. Like, you're kind of snapping new things onto old things, and each system you connect to has different databases and attack surfaces for cybersecurity and all sorts of complexity to it. We're at an age where people are supposed to be getting better at dealing with complexity. And in fact, AI is supposed to help us deal with complexity. What does higher ed get wrong? And then what's some recommendations for folks who are listening around how to avoid some of the traps and some of the mistakes that people can make when they're maybe overwhelmed and kind of don't even want to start the conversation because they know it's going to be hard?
Yeah. So I think what schools get wrong is when I map out these ecosystems, and you're absolutely right. It's databases on top of databases, systems on top of systems, plugins on top of plugins. And I've done hundreds of these mapping sessions, and I've never seen two schools look the same.
Yeah.
Like, they're always different. And those systems, they're oftentimes reflections of the organization itself.
Yes.
Like, the technology is mirrors of the organization. So a really simple example is, I don't need to even talk to anybody at the school. I can look at the website, and if I see a different application system for undergrad, a different one for graduate, and a different one for international, and a different one for online, I know that those are 4 separate business units. Like, that's how schools, like, that's how they've organized themselves. And so I think at the macro level, what schools often forget is that a lot of times their ecosystem is that organization. And I think schools, in order to reduce complexity, need to decomplexify their organization.
Yeah.
But that is way easier said than done.
Right.
But that's the necessary conversation, because If you're expecting things to become simpler and easier and more cost effective
Right.
and
I
that's
just want to vibe code my way through it.
yeah, yeah. Like you kind of have to start there. I didn't talk a lot about that in the presentation, but I do think it was kind of in an undertone of that. So I think that's one thing that schools get wrong. And I think the other thing they get wrong, two other things. One, it's always another application to solve a problem. So I think it's really easy to kind of just add another plugin, add another application, add another thing, just upgrade another thing. And it's kind of this never ending cycle of not keeping up with the Joneses, but you end up with even more spaghetti when you don't
Yeah.
take the time to like inventory and really make strategic decisions about what you're procuring. And so I think there's a lot of technical debt. And I think a lot of those technology decisions are really reactionary. And then the third and final thing I think that schools really, in many ways, need to start with is what is the overall impact objective? Where do we want to start?
Yeah.
Because if you look, so higher education has, I would argue, the most complicated technology environment of any company, of any organization. I mean, when you think of sometimes I'll hear people say things like, well, we want to be like Amazon. We want to be like Amazon. And I know Amazon has a lot of different facets of their business, but when I think I hear that, it's being implied like it should be so easy as putting a product in a cart
Yeah.
and then you buy it and then it shows up at the door.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I don't want to undersell or undervalue what Amazon is doing, but think of that experience that is so much simpler
Yeah.
than the 4+ years
Yeah.
an undergraduate student has to bounce through all of these different systems
Mhm.
over how long across all of these different organizations within organizations and organizations, and that's not even the coursework, right? So I think schools that they don't anchor on like what part are we trying to solve or improve. I think if you try to just make the whole thing better, unless you are starting over, I don't think that that's a realistic approach. I
Yeah.
think you have to pick, are we focusing on enrollment? Are we focusing on student success? Are we like, what are we trying to do? And so I think a lot of schools spin their wheels trying to solve the whole AI problem.
Right.
And I just don't think that's productive.
Yeah.
Or at least I haven't seen it be productive yet.
Well, what have you seen be productive? Because it does seem like there's almost a sequencing problem where people want to do the fun stuff first and they're not kind of eating their vegetables and kind of cleaning up
Yeah.
their house first. But like, are there places where folks can bank a small win and start somewhere? Where do you see folks making the most progress?
Yeah, yeah. So most of the use cases or they kind of fall into a few different domains. So number one, I would say just from a productivity suite standpoint, I think that's an area that schools should start. Students, faculty, they're going to use AI in some way.
Yeah.
You might as well give them the tools to be able to drive some of that.
Got
That's
it.
almost just like baseline, gotta have that.
Yeah.
And so whether it's Copilot or it's, Google's Gemini, works
Gemini.
Gemini, right? I'm waiting for all the Google home devices to go
Totally.
off of, they're both great.
Yeah.
Both of those will work. And I think it's just a matter of, picking a tool set to enable their like team. So I think that that's number one. But when it comes to actually, improving the experience, whether that's enrollment, whether that's student success, a lot of the areas that I'm seeing schools win is really in the realm of personalization. So how do we combine data from this system and that system to create us a better view of where somebody might be in the experience,
Yeah.
and then tailoring something to that. And that doesn't need to be this super intense data science exercise.
Yeah.
This can simply be this student hasn't logged into this or it hasn't taken advantage of this resource.
Right.
So one of the pilots or prototypes we have right now is it's almost like a student services recommendation system, and it's almost like a match system. So the idea is that schools, they have writing centers, they have career centers, they have, there's all the tutoring, there's all of these support resources, but schools aren't always doing the best job of connecting students to those
Right.
resources.
Yep.
So the idea is could we take the information that we have and based on what we know about somebody, align them to what resources might be like more relevant to them.
Yeah.
And then that data is something we're just making it accessible to the student success advisors
Yeah.
who can then kind of match people to what might make the most sense to them. So that has nothing to do with, machine learning and like it's really just how do we just take AI
Right.
and make these little simple recommendations that can make a difference. But once again, I think it just really comes down to prioritizing. Is it enrollment? Is it student success? Or sometimes it's really narrow. Do we have a application or like an accept to deposit problem? Or do we have a melt problem?
Right.
It's really, I think, taking a look at your funnel, taking a look at your pipeline, and really asking yourself, where do we have the biggest opportunity to make a difference, and attacking that. And that involves making choices.
Yeah.
So if I'm prioritizing student success, that might mean that enrollment doesn't get something.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes hard to navigate those like organizational challenges. But then I would say the most important thing is, finding quick wins. I'm confident every school, if they kind of prioritize and focus, will find a quick win. But it's reinvesting that value back into the process. Too often, I think schools, they almost treat it like a project.
Yes.
We did an AI project and now we're done, but that project needs care and feeding. You have to maintain it, but then you also have to reinvest that value into the next thing.
Yeah.
And then do it again and again and again. And so sometimes I think that reinvestment concept kind of gets lost in the way that we organize higher education budgets.
Yeah.
So enrollment has a big win. How do we reinvest some of that value, that increase enrollment, that tuition revenue? How do we reinvest that into the other functions? Which is a whole steering committee process in and of itself.
Yeah.
But those would be the areas that I would encourage a school to really look at.
Yeah. Love it. And then chatbots, thumbs up, thumbs down, agents. What do you think?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Yeah. I think in Google's session, they had asked, how many people, when I say AI, think of chatbots, like a text-based thing, and like a lot of hands went up, including my own.
Yeah.
Because I think that's like such an easy win,
Yeah.
right?
Clippy's back, but he's serious this time.
Clippy's back. I do think that, when you think of websites, especially in higher education, hundreds, tens of thousands of pages of information.
Yeah.
And, we've gone through the navigation on the website. Like, it's not a good experience, but I also don't know how it could be a good experience when you're trying to, have that much information to manage. So I think chatbots as like a means to get information and get answers, like I think that those things are here to stay. Now the agents, that's what I'm most excited about. And I know I'm not going to get into the, agentic versus agents. Like, to me, agents are really automated AI workflows.
Yeah.
And so actually in my presentation, I did 2 demos of kind of agents in action. And one of the agents that I shared was actually one I always like to sometimes take a step outside of higher education and show things, because I think sometimes we spend too much time talking about so let's take a step back into something else. But I shared something I built for myself, which was a family cell phone bill manager. So my problem is I, unfortunately, it is my credit card on the line each month. And I then have to go chase my entire family down for money for reimbursements, but it's also big giant pain to parse through the bill,
right?
Because people have installment plans on their phone. This person has insurance. This person went on an international trip. This person also has a watch. These 2 people live together, so they give one check. So it's a big giant pain. And I demoed a little workflow I had built with an agent, AT&T Bill Master agent.
Nice.
Where I feed in my PDF bill. Agent spits out a response, sends me an email, and here's the summary of all the allocation and then all the dollar amounts. You click on them and it brings to a Venmo link.
Wow.
And it works great. My favorite part of sharing that with the group was somebody suggested I add an interest calculator to the Venmo link
Mm,
where every day you don't pay,
mm,
it adds more money to the Venmo request.
huh.
And I'm kind of into that.
Yeah.
I might give that.
There's
That
a
might be
little,
a V2.
might be a little ROI in
Yeah, a
that.
little
We'll,
bit, a
we'll
little bit. I
see.
might start my own little family plan empire.
Exactly. Exactly. And then, you're an interesting example when I think about the future of work and the types of skills. And, folks frequently say we're preparing kids for jobs that don't exist today. You're probably an example of that. 10 years ago, folks weren't doing what you're doing. Just talking to you, like a lot of your sort of systems perspective and understanding of workflows and understanding of data infrastructure just jumped to mind as some of the skills that will pay the bills in the rest of the 21st century. From your vantage point, any thoughts on the types of skills that we should be focusing more on hiring for and developing in our workforce?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in automation,
Mm,
not for the fact of, replacing jobs, but I think automation is a skill set for any role is
yeah,
just going to be, I mean, it's going to be a requirement.
yeah,
I think so much of, take being, so again, I started my career in marketing, and a big part of what I was doing was around just marketing technology, like how does my email system work with my CRM system, and what is the data
yeah,
model, and how do I report? And a lot of those same skills I'm finding translate really well into just like higher education foundational technologies. It's all very, very, very similar. So I think that's like a good example where I think in this new world of AI, there's going to be a lot of parallels like that where a skill developed here is going to translate.
little learning transfer.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but I think with automation, especially, I definitely see this kind of think of it as like almost like a process optimization, automation, where it's not just being able to automate things, it's going to be taking the time to understand the process
Yeah,
as it stands today, which I think is a little bit business analyst,
yeah,
right?
mhm,
And then you're going to prototype something really quickly. So it's going to be a little bit developer,
yeah,
and you're probably going to use AI as a function within that process. So you need a little bit of prompt engineering,
yeah,
but it's that kind of skill set of how does it work today? How could it work better with AI? And how do I make something really lightweight to solve those
mm,
things? I think that AT&T Bill example is such a good one because I think we all suffer from, I call them paper cuts, right? Like
yeah,
there's these little administrative things
yeah.
you just need to do and just need to do and just need to do. And then those things kind of compound on
Thousand
each
of
other.
them come
Yeah,
together, and suddenly you're dead.
exactly. And so I think there's going to be, for the workforce of the future, it's going to require being able to identify those things, but also identify the things that can be automated in a way
Mhm,
to really just free up time to do other things
yeah,
that are more valuable.
mhm,
And I think also recognizing where like automation, so it's not just where can it work from a technology standpoint, but also where does it work from a human standpoint? Because, a lot of the use cases that I'll get asked about in student success is how do we use AI in student success? How do we do early alerting? How do we
yeah,
send out an intervention?
yeah,
And part of me is like, okay, well, we can do that. Like, we can certainly use AI to identify students who have a propensity to drop, to
right,
not do this. That's sure. But is an automated text message or email really the thing that's going to move, is going to help them? Like,
yeah,
because a lot of times with student success, especially, the challenges are really human. Like it's somebody struggling with like food insecurity,
yeah,
housing insecurity, or
transportation,
transportation, learning disabilities,
yeah,
family obligations.
totally,
Like you can't automate your way out of that.
mhm,
And that also doesn't serve the student. So, in my mind, it's, how do we create systems and automations that support
yeah,
the success coaches to be able to have more, to reach more students, to be talking and solving
mhm,
those human problems, not the paper cuts.
yeah,
We don't want them on that. We want them talking and solving these problems and connecting people to the right resources or lobbying for resources we don't have.
yeah,
And so that's where, so I know it's a long-winded answer to where's the future. I
yeah,
mean, I think it's still going to be a balance. I'm not an AI,
yeah,
it's not going to solve everything, but I think it'll certainly help in a lot of areas.
yeah. Amazing stuff here with Dan Antonson from Collegis here at the lovely Chicago headquarters for Google. Folks are heading back to the rest of their lives. Any takeaways, any parting shots, any concluding thoughts you want to share?
I would just say, AI is obviously not going to go away. And I think, again, this kind of systems thinking is going to be the way to really kind of embed it and wrangle it and put it in the right hands. And still a lot to figure out. It's an interesting time to be alive and
It
in the
is.
workforce.
Absolutely. Amazing stuff, Dan. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining me.
Thank you.